Lonely Monk Productions. I don't know if y'all have heard Heidi Ho by Jack White featuring Q-Tip yet, but yo!
That's my Jawn! Hey yo, displace the guilt.
What's good, friends and family, neighbors near and far? Welcome to an all-new episode of the Yo, That's My Jawn podcast. The podcast, website, brand, movement, way of life dedicated to the embrace and championing of your passions. I'm your host, Nate Runkle, a.k.a. Obi-Jon Kenobi, a.k.a. the Bruno we do talk about, a.k.a. Nate 3.0, back at it again with yet another episode of the podcast. As always, I hope this podcast finds you all in good health and in good spirits. On today's episode, I have an epic conversation with Andy King. I've been trying to make this interview happen since the very beginning of the podcast, and as a matter of fact, my desire to interview Andy, as you will hear, was the birth of the idea of this podcast being conversations with musicians about their lives and their careers. So I'm incredibly honored to chat today with the cat who inspired it all, and that is coming up in a bit. Well, what's shaking, homies? You know, the daylight has been saved, and we are now one step closer to springtime. And boy, it cannot come soon enough. Spring means I get back out on the disc golf course. You know, I've said it time and again on here, and I'm sure you're familiar, but I am a disc golfer. Disc golf is how I got to know Andy. And so many other incredible people, including a gentleman by the name of Dave Cox. Dave is a fellow disc golfer who in the past few years has picked up photography, and his work, it just keeps getting better and better. Well, I mention this because Dave is the photographer who took the photo of Andy that graces the cover of the episode of this podcast. You can find Dave's photos at www.coxpics.com. That's C-O-X Cox, coxpics.com. Don't misspell that. I don't want to know where you might end up if you do. But as I said earlier, wanting to chat with Andy was one of the main influences on my decision to start this podcast. And having this conversation had me in a bit of a nostalgia kick. So I went back to the beginning of the Yo, That's My Jawn website. You know, I've told the tale time and again to various guests about how it was Robin's dancing on my own that got me to want to create this space. But, you know, one of the things I've never shared on the podcast was the first post that I wrote for the site. It was kind of my mission vision statement, if you will, a post that laid out what I believe this project could become. And a good portion of it has been realized by the many episodes of this podcast. But I want to share it here with you today, not just to Martin Luther my treatise on the front door of the podcast, but also to remind myself of what I want and know this all can be. And so here's the first piece I wrote for the Yo, That's My Jawn website, entitled Our Life Together. Our life together is so precious. Together we have grown. We have grown. It's in every step I take, from the way I wear my hat to my desire to not only rock and roll all night, but also find a way to party every day. I am a street-walking cheetah with a heart full of napalm, born to run like a bat out of hell, fueled entirely by one thing: music. It's been there whenever I need it. Music would always find me. In the happiest moments of my life that I never wanted to end, to my saddest moments of despair that seemed like they never would. It can raise me up to heights unknown to us common earth folk far outside of our stratosphere. But it can just as powerfully send me crashing down in the kind of flat spin that cost us Goose so many moons ago. It owns me, mind, body, and soul, and I would have it no other way. Surrounded by the people I love, music has been there. Alone, unsure if I can make it one more day, music has been there. It has taught me love. It has taught me hate. It has taught me obsession. It has taught me forgiveness. It has taught me how to feel. Taught me how to remember. Taught me how to forget. Music has been such an important part of my life, riding shotgun through the grand universe of the day-to-day, never knowing where we're headed, but knowing that when we got there, we'd have gotten there together. But something happened. I don't know when and I don't know why, but Music climbed into the back seat, still in the car with me and still there for the journey, but no longer my co-pilot charting our course. No longer reading the map and telling me where to go, how to go. Music went from being an active sidekick, the Ernie Reyes Jr. to my Gil Gerard, to more of a passive passenger, quiet so often that at times I find myself offering a fatherly, "You all right back there, bud?" Sometimes I can hear music singing along from behind me, but most days I just see it when I peer into my rear view, humming along to its own song, gazing out the window, trying to figure its own things out. We're still close, we always will be, and we still talk, but we're just not as tight as we used to be. Ooh, growing up. Adulting. Yeah, life. Yeah, at some point, I reached a certain age where time hit a Gulf Stream like current and is now seemingly blowing by with every blink of the eye. Or maybe it has nothing to do with age. Maybe it's just how things are now, especially with music. Everything happens so fast with no time to devour and savor. Stop and replay and stop and replay and stop and replay on a seemingly never-ending loop. And why would we want it to end, until you can tell yourself that you finally understand exactly why your new favorite singer chose to audibly exhale in that one small moment before the second chorus. That moment of pure, imperfect vulnerability where they decided to let it all hang out. There has to be a reason she or he or they left it there intentionally. Not for the casual listener, but for us. The ones who were not just listening, but really listening. The ones who wanted to understand. The only ones who could understand. The dreamers and the forlorn. This wasn't for the dilettantes. This was for us. Yes, I am now singing the jaded, cynical reprise of The Old Man, a walking cliche bathed in the warm remembrance of a time when, quote-unquote, things were better, and dare I say it, quote-unquote, back in my day. But I swear, dear reader, I swear I'm not that guy. I can't be that guy wearing his death's head belt buckle, pining for yesterday's dreams, can I? Too old to rock and roll, but too young to die? Maybe I am. But you know what? I don't want to be. I want to rock, goddammit. All praise be to Dee Snider. That, my friends, is where this blog comes in. This website, this media network, this daydream that I cooked up and have been kicking around my stupid ADD-infested brain, whatever this ends up being. Yo, that's my Jawn. It's been dying to get out. I want to talk about music. I want to make music. I want to tell music, hey man, how about you come back up in the front seat of this car and take that seat next to me that you've always belonged in while I roll down the windows and crack open the sunroof so the whole damn world can hear us belting out Heartbeat It's a Love Beat by the DeFranco family at the top of our lungs. Unafraid to show the world that, yes, we're crazy, but we're crazy together. In good or bad weather, happy or sad, every goddamn single day of our lives. This is going to be my happy little space to share my love of music. A place to put some album reviews, be it a new release or some back catalog gem that's been stuck on repeat in my headphones for the past 17 years or something that changed my life. I want to share some songs that I wrote in another life when I played the role of aspiring musician that I was too shy or too self-conscious to let anyone listen to for fear that they might hate it, or worse yet, they might like it. I want to deconstruct the earworms that continuously threaten to colonize my brain and try to find a way to evict them from my head. I want to talk about the industry, and I want to talk about what's moving me and what isn't. But most importantly, I want to have a discussion. Look, I'll be the first to admit how masturbatory all this is. Listen to me! Listen to what I want to listen to! Oh, the cleverness of me! I don't expect you to hang on my every word, and if we're being completely honest, I truly don't expect you to have read this far. But maybe something will catch your eye and you'll think, hey, someone else likes that song too, or you've got to be kidding me, this is garbage. Or maybe I turn you on to something you never even knew existed, I don't know. But what I do know is I have had a lifelong love affair with music, and it is time I pay it the respect it deserves. I still love you, music. I just hope that you still love me. My guest today is a musician, a producer, a singer, a songwriter, a disc golfer. He is a former member of Philly legends The Hooters, where he co-wrote the song Carla with a K and sang lead on their cover of the Beatles' classic Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, and played bass throughout the 80s. He has played with the bands Jack of Diamonds, the Rhythm Cats Review, Moving Day, and has also played with fellow Hooters member David Osikinen and his In the Pocket project. He also released a beautiful solo album entitled Spiritual Preschool, showcasing the brilliant songwriting that went unused during his tenure with the Hooters. He is performing this Saturday, March 19th at the Living Room at 35 East in Ardmore, PA. Tickets are available at thelivingroom at 35east.com. Folks, it is my honor to welcome to the show, Andy King. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am joined today by the great Andy King. Andy, thank you for joining me here on Yo, That's My Jawn.
It's a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
So, this has been a long time coming. We've been trying to do this for a little bit of time. I had some major flooding in the studio area last year when we were going to try to do it before the last show. And now I'm glad we're finally here. But I get to tell you, you were actually partially the inspiration for this show, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on here. And that's because I want to say, I started all this during the pandemic, all right? I've been trying to, get into this. And one of the inspirations for this idea was the post you made about the anniversary of Live Aid. Mm-hmm. And it was just such an amazing, concise story, in a Facebook post. And I was like, man, I need to talk to Andy about all of this stuff. He's got all of this crazy. And then I was like, oh man, an interview show where I interview musicians that I know and stuff like that and all. And so so literally your post was the inspiration for this whole podcast. So thank you, not just for doing this, but for the inspiration.
Cool, man. Well, I think part of the reason the post was good is because I journal. I've been as of late, not so much. Honestly, the last 8 or 9 years, not so much. But I've always had journals pretty much through high school. Not every day, but enough days where you sort of can see progress and I just am amazed at how a few words can open up so many synapses. You don't have to you don't have to write everything down, but just one then the butterfly flew in, it just it explodes the whole memory bank. So with Live Aid, I have a pretty good entry about it, when I was exhausted the next night after not sleeping for 3 days. And, so I think that's partially why it was, the details were kind of good.
Yeah.
The one thing I never talked about was Sean Penn and Madonna being douchebags. Literally the only entourage backstage. Really? Led Zeppelin's standing right there. And all of a sudden it's people pushing and dudes in a circle around him. And it's Sean Penn and Madonna. And Sean Penn has a leather fucking jacket on and it's 190 out.
Oh my God.
And I got kind of elbowed out of the way. And speaking of that, Jimmy Page's girl, I don't know who she was, and I'm probably gossiping horrifically, but he was with this youngish girl. Let me just put it that way. Who had on 4-inch heels, and the whole backstage area of Live Aid was pebbles. I guess they just put down a layer of 4 inches, exactly the heel height of her heels. Was how much she's walking around in the backs of her shoes are sinking down the whole time. Anyway, sorry.
That's incredible. It's funny you say that about, journaling and words and stuff like that, just firing off the synapses. Because I read this study recently that they think memory begins when you start to understand language and you can assign words to different things. And that's essentially what commits things to memory. So, it is totally true, though. You can read just the littlest thing and it's oh my God, I remember the 3 weeks after that or what.
Yeah. And you just reminded me of a thing I do that kind of freaks out Ann and people I go out with. I'll always ask a server their name. And the next time we'll go back, a lot of times I'll remember, because my dad taught me a trick. When you meet somebody, you say their name right away and you look for a physical feature. Anything, it doesn't have to, but just pick something and lock on the name with that thing, and then try to use their name again when you're conversing, and then use their name again when you say goodbye. And it's amazing how that, you're talking about it, locking on, it gives us something to latch onto. And I think that's really true.
That's wild. Yeah, I'm terrible with names, so I should try some of those tricks.
Give it a go, man. Like say the person's name, like, hi, Bob, how are you? Nice to meet you. So Bob, how do you know people here? And then, hey, Bob, good to meet you. And those three things in him, you pick out like his left eyebrow is a little bushier, and then when you see the dude in his bushy eyebrow, yeah, Bob.
Oh, there's Bob. Oh, that's awesome. So tell me a little bit about growing up. Where did you grow up? Where were you born?
Born in Massachusetts, Springfield, home of the original Friendly ice cream store. Like we used to go to the Friendly Brothers, the guys who ran it. And what became Fribbles used to be called Awful Awfuls. Awful big and awful good.
Oh, that's awesome.
I so remember going to Friendly's and for the first time being allowed to get my own Awful Awful. Because a lot of times they would just give you a little side cup. And so I don't know, I was like 4 or 5. And I just remember literally reaching up onto the counter at Friendly's and bringing that giant thing down, and then you look at a Fribble glass, they're still pretty big when you're little. Anyway, so born in Springfield and lived there for the first 5 years. And then we moved into Ambler.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, like Morris Road and Butler Pike, basically.
What year was the move to Ambler? I have family that's from here, so
63.
Okay.
Yeah. So we went to Germantown Academy right down the street. So that was a short little commute. And I'm really lucky, dude. I totally get that I hit the lottery in terms of like being born when and where and to what. And and I'm so thankful that, parents have sent me to a good school and gave us a great environment and gave us, guitar and bass, like go ahead and give it a shot. So we were that kind of house where the third floor was a noisy mess, but our parents were cool with us having drums and bass up there and just smashing things.
That's cool. You're the third of 5. Is that right?
Yeah. I have 2 older brothers. My brother Josh is an assistant director in LA, works major motion films. And my brother Chris is a writer. My sister Tracy, I have twin and younger sisters, Tracy and Amy. And Tracy produced the Conan O'Brien show for a bunch of years. She started with him in his first year. She was like basically an intern and just stayed with him and kept rising up till she was one of the main 3 producers on the show.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. And she had a great run with that. And my other sister, Amy, is an artist and a riding instructor.
Oh, that's incredible! A lot of creativity there. What was the music like? What were your parents listening to? Like, what kind of music was around the house?
One of my first musical memories is the Beatles. Not the Ed Sullivan thing. I was a little too young for that. To really lock in. But around that time, hearing their song "A Taste of Honey," which is like wasn't a big song and it's kind of quiet, but I remember my mom really liking it, and so she's like, "Well, this is the one I like." And she put it on. And I just, that really hit me. So, my dad was always just humming, so he had whatever it was, he had a little bit of a thing inside him and he would, had his little internal beat. And, so once we started getting like the teen years, it was a crazy time in music. There was so much exploding, but I remember being kind of scared of hippies. Really? I was like 9 or 10, and suddenly, I don't know, there was something about it just made me a little uncomfortable. It seemed kind of, I don't know. Well, I don't know what it was, being an innocent kid from a, suburb. And I don't know, it just struck me as kind of dirty and like, I don't know. Anyway, so that music was exploding, and hearing Led Zeppelin for the first time, I was like, whoa, like that's heavy, that is not the bubblegum music that was on radio, because the radio stuff, show your, then you hear Zeppelin compared to that. But we like a lot of stuff. We love Dave Mason. We love Loggins and Messina. But I think Loggins and Messina was kind of like our Dave Matthews Band. Because when you would go see them, they would stretch stuff out and just play, like the musicianship and dynamics and, songs being 18 minutes long because of jams. But Jim Messina was like one of our first early guitar players that were like, that's, it's Messina within like 5 or 6 notes just because of the way he plays, the way he attacks. And I was like, I liked Rush.
Oh my God.
The first one, 2112, was the first album of theirs that I heard. And my older brother used to give me so much shit for that. It sounds like a girl, blah, blah, blah. But, eventually he became like a huge fan and like had DVDs of their concert in Brazil. And so, we had a wide variety of stuff. And luckily there was enough of us that it wasn't really till we got to be like late teens that we really started playing. Yeah. Part of it being this guy, Eddie McKendry, was from a family that his mother died and his father wouldn't let him play music. Like literally your guitar is going out or you're going out. So he moved in with us. And so we already had 5 kids. So what's another? He can grab a bunk bed and, but he was a guitar player, like a savant, or not savant, but a prodigy. At 14, he was shredding and learning on Allman Brothers and Peter Frampton. So his melodic styling was just really unique and really intense. And he basically taught me how to play guitar. And, I think without Eddie, I don't think I would have had the musical journey that I've had. He sort of made it real in a way. Like, you can do this, just here's how you do it. And so I'm really thankful to him. And he's playing with me at the living room on the 19th.
Oh, cool.
We're doing it together. So that's a kind of a nice full circle thing, bringing around and still playing with Eddie. So you will have to ask him if he remembers me, because we actually played Tex-Mex together a few times. So. I will. Right. Yeah. Eddie is like one of those dudes who's like a human jukebox.
Yes. Like
he can play anything. You need almost throw any song at him and he'll be able to fake his way through it. And I'm the exact opposite. if I'm not currently playing something, it's like
I'm the same way. Even songs I wrote myself, I have to like relearn every time I go to try to play them. Like it's such a challenge.
Yeah. Why do you think they call it dope?
That's it's so true. It's so true. So when you started playing guitar around then, like did you start writing at the same time, or were you just kind of doing covers and stuff like that?
Here's the weird part about it. Eddie was a great guitarist. My brother Chris is a really good drummer, like super good timekeeper. And we had a friend named Jeff Sanders who's a bass player. So I was always kind of like the JV, like those guys were when it was going to really happen, those guys were playing. So I always had a bit of a complex isn't the right word, but I always felt like a little inferior, because I new musicians really close to me that were doing stuff that I couldn't. And, so anyway, I didn't start writing until I got an acoustic guitar when I was going off to college. And, I kind of played a little bass. I kind of played a little guitar. I'm actually a pretty solid drummer. And, but when I bought the acoustic, it was like, then it became much more intimate. It's just like, and the feeling of having an acoustic guitar held against you while the strings vibrate. I mean, I always tell people, you don't have to be able to do too much, because honestly, a C, G, and D are just like, there's something about those changes that are just like, and having it be next to you and resounding. And, that's the biggest blessing of playing, is just getting to be part of that vibration, as hippie as that sounds, but it's kind of really true. It's like, it is vibrations being heard by other people's ears, and you're kind of part of the projection machine.
Absolutely. So here's a you just kind of sparked something that I've always wanted to ask people, and I always forget to ask, and you just reminded me of it, and now I'm so glad. What's your home chord? So like, if you pick up a guitar, what's the first thing you're gonna hit?
It's kind of like a modified F. It's like F without your middle finger down.
Okay.
Because it rings, and there's, a little bit of dissonance, but a little bit of tension.
Okay.
That's it's like possibility.
Yeah, I like it. Mine's a G chord. And that's why I found it so fascinating, because like I started like watching people like when they pick up a guitar and what their first thing is, and somebody will hit an A and I was like, oh, I wonder if there's it's like a thumbprint, like what's your first thing?
I'll take that chord is the first thing I go to after I know the guitar's in tune. For some reason, hitting a G helps me know whether it's in tune or not. So a lot of times I do play a G and I pick it up and go, okay, now it's in tune. Now I can start playing.
Yeah, I learned how to play guitar teaching myself. I used to work. I don't know if you remember Stewart's Music in Lansdale, but I worked in the front of the store while Jim Stewart gave lessons in the back. And he also, serviced guitars and stuff like that. And every single time he picked up a guitar, he played a C chord. And then played a sequence that was like C, it was C to make sure it was in tune, and then would play like a quick little C, F, G kind of riff. And right. And I can't hear a C. I can't tune a guitar without playing that C chord. Like it's not my home chord, but that is definitely
it's part of your birthing.
It is. It's where it all started. It all started. So you go away to University of Delaware. What did you go there for?
I was kind of a jock in high school, and I played football. I played basketball until my senior year, and then I wrestled because I had a fight with a basketball coach. So the wrestling team needed a 187. So I went and got my ass kicked.
Yeah.
For a year. You're wrestling against guys that are like 8 inches shorter than me, the same weight, and just like, yeah. And, I'm like, the coach said if I put my hand on,
yeah.
But it was a really valuable experience. It was the only like solo sport I ever did, where it's just you sitting there for the whole match, looking across the mat of the dude that you're going to be wrestling. And, but I won 3 times, so that's something.
Hey, there you go.
But lacrosse was my game. I was a really good lacrosse player. I was like an all-state lacrosse player, and was going down to the University of Delaware to play there because my brother Josh was there. So I felt like that'll be a kind of a good intro, and it'll be good to be able to hang with him and meet some people. But when I got to school, it was just like college sports was so much more intense than high school. It was 6 days a week, and it was get on the bus to go down to the field house and, get your ass kicked by guys that are 4 years older than you, have full beards. So I played a year and a half, but after my sophomore year in the fall, I also left school because I was kind of like, all right, well, if I'm not playing lacrosse and I'm not really studying anything particularly except learning how to hang out with people.
Yeah.
So I took a semester off, came home, went to Montco and just took some basic classes and sort of hit reset, and then went back and finished up, deciding to be a theater major because I liked lighting design, and so I was a lighting design major and got to do dance and theater and actually ended up acting in a couple things because they needed a musician. So I played Amiens the Minstrel in As You Like It.
Oh, cool.
And sang Blow, Blow Thou Winter Wind while playing a mandolin. So I went back and had a really good time and loved doing the theater because it wasn't book studying. It wasn't like learn this and barf it up on a test. It was, we have to make this set and we have, 11 weeks to do it. And how are we going to do it? So let's plan it out and start making it. So it's cool to learn soldering and I think men in general like to build stuff.
Definitely.
There's just something about it. It's like, it's primal. And so while I was at Delaware, I began to see this band called Jack of Diamonds at the Stone Balloon, which my senior year, we lived across the street from the Stone Balloon. So you can imagine how much we got done. But when I graduated, I went and had the only blackout I've ever had in my entire life because my friend Gina said, here, have a half Quaalude. And
man.
So the last thing I remember is getting up with Jack of Diamonds just playing tambourine. Like how, this, I love these guys. They let me on stage. How cool. This is the best thing that's ever going to happen to me. But then waking up the next day and being like, I called my friend Gene. I was like, what happened? He's like, oh, I just walked you home about an hour later and you were a little goofy, but you went inside and everything was fine. And she called me back 10 minutes later and said, Andy, I just talked to somebody who said they saw you at Kim Perron's house at 3 a.m. and you were playing guitar and singing and entertaining. And apparently I rode my bike there, played and rode my bike home, locked my bike up front. And 4 hours later, I had no memory of it.
Wow. Wow. It could have
But
been
anyway,
could have been the best show ever.
well, apparently I was quite charming. So anyway, Jack of Diamonds, like 3 weeks later, when I was graduating, their bass player quit, and I heard about it, and I just basically lied because I was not a bass player. I had played a bass, and we jammed once in a while, but did not consider myself a bass player. I was acoustic guitarist doing like Dan Fogelberg and James Taylor and all, the cover stuff that you would do back then. And so I just lied and said, yeah, I play bass. So they will come over here at this time and we'll check it out and learn these 2 songs. And at the end, they're like, cool, you want to join? And so I had to learn like 45 songs in 2 weeks on an instrument I never played before.
Oh, God.
My fingers are like, God, these strings are so big. But anyway, that turned, I love Jack of Diamonds. They were, when I used to go see him, it was like Steely Dan, Little Feat, all these really cool songs. It wasn't like they were, a bar band. They were trying to make it. And when I joined, we had just put out a record and tried to do the original thing. But, some things hit and some don't. But I'm proud of my time with that band. And we actually opened for the Hooters at this in Norristown at this theater. What's it called? I have a poster right over there. But in Norristown. And so I left Jack of Diamonds. I opened for the Hooters acoustically. And then their bass player got in a car accident and was going to be out for like 4 months. And so I guess I was just kind of fresh in their head. They'd seen me on bass. They've heard me sing and play guitar. And so they called me up and went and auditioned, and boom,
That's
cool
crazy.
things keep happening. And it's sort of just falling in my lap in a lot of ways. So I've always been very cognizant of how fate plays a role in how shit can go for you. And I know so many musicians that were so worthy of the kind of success I had, like players and their work attitude and how hard they tried. And so I know I'm lucky to have sort of gotten to the other side in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. What year did you join the Hooters?
Would have been early into 84.
Okay.
I opened for them in December of 83. And then so 84 and was there through the beginning of 88.
Okay.
Yeah.
The
good years. We got signed to Columbia. We played Live Aid. A lot of good shit happened.
Yeah, you did. Most importantly, you guys played my high school. I wasn't there for it, but it was like even by the time I got there, like it was still everybody was like, the Hooters played here, right? That was like that's huge.
We called that the lasagna tour because every concert crew, they're like, how many people you have coming in? We're like, well, 5 guys in the band and like 7 crew and a road manager. They're like, what can we make for that many people? Like lasagna. So we had a lot of lasagna on that tour.
One of the things I noticed on the Nervous Night credits is the bass credits are kind of split. How did that work? Did you come in like in the middle of the recording of that, or?
Well, I'll be completely honest with you. I didn't play a lick of bass on Nervous Night.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
No. Although there was my picture with the name with bass underneath it.
Yeah.
So that was a little weird, honestly. And then that, doing an interview with Bass Magazine and talking about the record, and like, I just kind of couldn't tell the truth because, so it's easier to go, I know how it was recorded. I know what the bass was. I knew what the amp was, all that stuff. But, I got it. I understood why, it's Rob and Eric's shot, and so they were going to control it. And Eric had written all the bass parts, cut the demos on the bass, and cut the parts really well. So there was kind of no reason for me to go in and redo
to
it.
re-record it.
It could be me. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. Eric's a really good bass player, and I was happy to learn his parts and do the best I could to reproduce them and bring them to life.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah. So, that album comes out and, that's when things start rolling, doing some of this research, leading into this. I do research from time to time,
Sure,
but,
can't hurt.
That's right. That's exactly right. Doing some of this research, it's incredible how much happened in like 2 years, like that it's, incredibly fast too. Like, what was that jump kind of like, especially for you, like coming in, like, okay, I'm not only having to now gel with these guys who I'm just joining, but also I have to do it. And in a year, we're going to be in front of like 90,000 people playing to 1.9 billion or whatever Live Aid was.
The strange part is that a lot of it was kind of like carrot and stick for me, because I thought I was going to be yanked in 4 months when Rob Miller got better.
Yeah.
So I spent 4 months signing posters with his picture on them, and it's going, "This is not me, Andy King," because that's all the promotional stuff had Rob on it.
Yeah.
And then I don't know how the decision came down. I really wasn't privy to that. I just know that at one point they're like, "Do you want to stay?" Like for whatever chemistry that happened. I think mostly vocally.
Yeah.
Our three voices really just kind of really meshed well. I brought like a sort of a high thing to their two voices. And I think that's probably what it was, because Rob Miller is a really good bass player and good looking kid. And, so I was happy, it was nice but I think that spirit of outsideness always kind of stayed with me. And why eventually I decided to leave the band is because there was always kind of like a 1 foot in feeling, and then not being really part of the creative process, which became an issue on the second record. I can understand the first album, right. It's their chance to make an impact, and they're going to control it. And I get that. But when, we spent nearly 2 years living on a bus and touring behind that record, like I always say, even Ringo got to sing on Beatles records.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like that involvement is what we do it for. That's the forever shit. That's what will last. That's what will exist on album, CD, file, whatever it is. And we never really got that as a band. And for me, like bring it together. We're going to go into the studio and cut live, because we've been playing together nonstop. We'd go out for 3 months, come back for a few days, go back out. I don't know the exact numbers. I was going through some stuff. I actually came across our tour itineraries. And it's kind of neat to look at them. It's like a month of, load in at the Cowboy Zone, and just sort of another thing like, oh yeah, I remember that gig, and the Cow Palace in San Antonio. And, so it was an amazing experience. I would really love to have really been in a band situation. I know this is going to sound weird. I have zero sour grapes. I want to make that clear. I have no, like, they should have let me do more, I wanted to sing because it was their thing. I never expected beyond that. But I would like to have seen what would have happened. To grab that energy that has been playing in front of millions of people, like all over the world, come in and let's play, and so I think, because that's why, for me, like Amore is the best Hooters record, like the first one, the independent one.
Yeah.
Because it tops, man. It just jumps out, and it's just what the band was doing. It wasn't overthinking. It's, they did it really quickly, cut live. And I just think that essence would have been really nice to see what would happen. And plus, like, I don't suck. I write some good songs. I'm a pretty good singer, and so like, what would happen if we really do this? Like what would the further meld be, and how cool might it be? But, didn't happen. So that's life.
Yeah. But you absolutely did contribute too in that period too, right? Like Carla with a K. Those are bus jams. Carla, that came around the same time as our arrangement of Lucy in the Sky did. We were just literally in the back of the bus on some 9-hour drive, and we have instruments in the back lounge and just knocking stuff around. And
yeah, I would have loved much more of that. Would have, because I think like that's when we came up with Lucy, that was one of the spine tingler moments of my time in the band. Beyond the fact that it went on, I got to sing it at Red Rocks and at Madison Square Garden, and that part of it, amazing in and of itself. But when we first like jumped over the chorus, went back to the verses, and the tension of it and the coolness of the mandolins taking the parts, it was like we were sort of in the back of the lounge going, "Whoa, that's intense!"
Yeah.
And we did it live like 5 days later, and so it was this like, you would ask about how shit was rolling. It was like, I feel a little bit lucky that there was a little bit of this. We were kicking ass in high schools, and doing really well. Then it got to be a little bigger. Then it got to be a little bigger. And, then we're doing 6 nights at the Tower, and that's cool in and of itself. But that feeling, and when the record started hitting, and you're going out and you're noticing, like when we were opening for Don Henley, that was like our first big tour, about 3 weeks into it, you say, oh, and Zombies is getting some airplay. That was the first single we put out, because boom, 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 you would hear people like react. They knew. And so that, that's like that as a musician, and I wish everybody could have gotten to experience it. I know everybody has fans and you have people that react, but there was something about touring is that people would give you this is my only time this year I'm going to get to see this band, so I'm going to give it up now. They're not going to be at 23 East next week and at the Chestnut Cabaret the week after that. It's those. Thank God for those fans. I mean, there was people who came and saw us so much, and they still come out. I mean, there's this girl, Lisa Di Stefano, who is like one of the biggest music supporters I've ever seen. She goes out to Seattle to see Pearl Jam and Eddie Vedder, and her whole life is just about it. But she exudes her mirror, like, she's really feeling it.
Yeah.
And so it's a blessing, that people gave us so much. And, I'm happy to be a part of a lot of people's childhoods, and teen adults, a lot of people that, and We Dance was kind of a pivotal song, it was like my prom song or whatever, it's like a lot of people. And I remember hearing that song for the first time and I was like, what is this? Because at that point, when they went off to do Nervous Night, we were a ska reggae band. It was like, it's like all about moving the crowd in the clubs.
Yeah.
So when I heard And We Dance, was like, that's a really cool song, but I don't know who that band is.
Right. Yeah.
But then it turns out, it becomes like sort of one of the iconic things, the mandolin beginning, it's like, it's really good stuff.
It's really funny you mentioned the ska beginning, because I was reading, I forget the guy who wrote the book, but there's this book about U.S. Ska, the U.S. ska movement, and
right.
It's like an oral history. And I'm reading and and I'm like in chapter 4, and it's about the Hooters. And I was like, wait, what the fuck? Because I had no idea, right? Like I was just like, what the hell? Like it was like an awakening. And I think that just came out like a year or 2 ago. I was trying to get that author on the show too, but. But yeah, like it's incredible, kind of the change and growth of the band, and even from Nervous Night into the next album, where you're contributing a little, not as much as you'd like, but like that growth. The songwriting growth from like, And We Dance, which is a stellar song, but like Satellite, like it's just, you can kind of see kind of what you're speaking to, like where it was going. And I can also see where you're saying where they wouldn't want to give up kind of that, what their thing, what their vision was. Right.
I get that. I honestly, I recognized that and knew it was not going to change. If we've come this far and gone over as many hurdles we've had, and there hasn't been a change of bring Andy to the studio and we're just kind of the two of us, or bring the whole band in, or, it's those two guys and the producer, were just it was about, you know, and Davey, the drummer, has always been sort of the tripod of the Hooters. You know, it's like it's been the three of them pretty much from the beginning. And John Lilly's been there a long time, but John was, you know, didn't have a whole lot of input either, and not sure how much guitar he played on records. Never really talked about it. So yeah, but I remember going to seeing the Hooters. That's what I loved about them. And that music with Davey drumming, is his drumming with ska and reggae stuff was Stuart Copeland unique. You know, like nobody else was doing it, and he was super energized and, you know, like super tight and super pushing it. So I had just giant respect for him. And not that the I call it Americano. Hooters kind of went a little Americana,
that makes sense.
You know, and the straight four beats, and just I felt like his playing got squinched a little bit. You know, it's like he still was playing super hard in the pocket, but the stuff that sort of made him uniquely him got taken away a little bit.
Pun intended there, in the pocket, or
well, that was cool. The first time I did that, honestly, that was a really cool moment when I came out and he and I played together for the first time. There were some Hooters fans there that were really excited, and it just felt really good. It was like an old pair of shoes, man. We just locked back in. And,
I just watched a video clip on YouTube, and like you can see the joy in your face, kind of just when you guys lock back in.
Yeah. Well, Neil, and I miss playing bass. I mean, playing bass in the studio room without bass is, you got to have the big speaker behind your butt, moving some air, you know, and just being able to feel that just that alone, getting to do the beginning of All You Zombies in so many places, just being able to go boom, boom, and just hear it going out and feel it going out. Yeah. You know, because when you're on big stages, I mean, I had my little pocket where I could hear because I used like a really small speaker back then. It was called a Roland Supercube. It was just one 12-inch speaker, but it sounded really good. But it was only like a 3-foot circle where you could really, really hear. And then when you start walking around with the wireless thing, you're walking across the stage.
You lose.
I can't hear my signal anymore. But I know if I hit something wrong, the whole room would suddenly sound weird. You know, like the frequency would be like, whoa, what was that? But yeah, it was. That's one thing I always tell people about. The technical aspects of performing in places like that are really daunting. There's a lot of stuff going on, and you know, a lot of sound issues and a lot of trust issues. You don't, especially when you're opening. You know, we would get 0 sound check. You know,
right?
And be thrust on stage and hope, you know, have the monitors. You have no idea what you're going to be able to hear. You know, so you know, I watch the Beatles and see them play without monitors, and I feel a lot more lucky, but. I don't know how those guys sang in tune. Honestly, I have no idea.
Like
between the girls screaming,
10,000 hours of doing it in the cavern. You know, like
yes, yeah. But even in the cavern, if enough people were in there, it's like hearing yourself must have been really difficult. No matter how not loud the amps were, it's still going to be louder than your voices.
Yeah. Speaking of the Beatles, what's that moment like? Doing Top of the Pops, and then, hey, Paul McCartney, what's up? Like,
we knew. We knew. Yeah, we knew he was going to be on, so we were kind of amping up, and so it wasn't like a jaw-dropping thing. And the best part about it, honestly, was he was on the show, we were on the show. You all had to be there for rehearsals and technical stuff, so he was just hanging around, you know, and so it didn't have to be like, you know, you try to dump all your shit on him in like 30 seconds, you know. And I ended up having, you know, kind of a neat, quiet little talk with him about, you know, getting busted in Japan and, you know, and how, you know, how what it's like to be globally embarrassed. You know,
sure.
But he and Linda could literally not have been any nicer. And
that's amazing.
I got a couple things signed. I didn't want to be a bother, but my friend Eddie is like a huge fan, so I got him something. Or my brother Eddie, I should say. And so it was amazing, you know, and then getting to see it, just to be there and I don't know. I was having a big time. You know, we were in London. So. Yeah. We've been all over Europe. I got to play the Marquee Club the night before, which is a place where The Who and Led Zeppelin used to play. And it was just one of those nights where I knew my bass sounded like God. When I stepped to the edge of the stage, it's like I can hear what it sounds like in the audience. And I literally could not wish for a better bass sound.
Oh, that's incredible. That's so incredible. Did you get to tell Paul about your mom's obsession with Taste of Honey, or?
I never didn't get that deep, you know. would have been nice. I'm sure he would have been tickled by it because, you know, she also like Michelle. I mean, my mom, you know, was older. I mean, obviously, I think about it now, she wasn't really all that old. You know, it would be like me being into 21 Pilots. You know, like there's new music and I like it. It's different than what I listen to, but you know, I can hear the goodness in this.
Yeah,
and I'm sure she felt the same way. You know, even there were a lot of people. Somebody posted recently about that had a review of the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. And the guy was like, Ed Sullivan's wasting his time with this noisy crap. Man. Like, yeah, this didn't age well.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if that guy ever changed his tune, like, you know, 5-10 years later.
He seemed like one of those guys who would dig his heels in. That's how blind it seemed to be. So
you end up leaving the Hooters and then you start working on some solo stuff. And, you know, you sent me a copy of Spiritual Preschool. And I told you it lived. It actually, today was the first day I took it out of my car, to be honest, to bring it in the house to do some of more of my research. But just a phenomenal album. What was kind of the process of putting that together? Like, was that stuff that you had like accumulated over the years since you weren't able to have that output, or?
You know, I've always had some sort of recording set up ever since the Tascam 4-tracks for the cassette tapes, and then I went to like this Akai 12-track that used kind of VHS tapes, and I thought, you know, being able to layer stuff, and that was I just could spend hours doing that, you know, just like fitting stuff together. So I always had a way to record. So I had a lot of songs, and some made it to demo, some made it onto the record. A couple were stuff that I'd had around for a while. Like Carry Me With You was just actually a song I played for Eric, like on the tour bus one night. And he was like, man, really good, really good. And so it's a little combination of that. And it was just because I wanted to do it because I wanted to. You know, it's like just as a record of time and record of what I was doing. And it was kind of piecemeal. Would do some here, some there. And then I met the guy who ended up co-producing with me, and he had a good setup in the studio. And so it became a little more like, okay, we know what the setting is now, and we're able to invite people in, like the drummer, Ronnie Crawford, who did just a phenomenal job. But in the meantime, after I left the Hooters, I was in this band called the Rhythm Cats, which was basically like In the Pocket back then. It was me and Ken Queter and Becca Eaton from a band called the Daves, and Richard Bush. So there was like 4 lead singers and the same rhythm section. Ronnie Crawford on drums, Gary Lee on bass, Alan on guitar. They called him Iceman. You know, and we played all over the place, you know, and we would take turns, like who would go first. And we each did a set of our own stuff. And then we got together and we did side 2 of Abbey Road as an encore, like the whole thing with all the vocals, like really orchestrated, because we had 9 singers and it was really beautiful. I'm really proud of it. Yeah, that was good. I don't know if there's any recordings of it.
I was just going to say,
you know, and I got to sing Golden Slumbers, which has always been one of my favorites. And there's just so many good McCartney vocals on that side.
I just made a comment about this the other day, but I don't know a better side of an album than that. Like it's like it's perfect. It's just perfect.
It really is.
Except for Her Majesty, I'm a little off about like oh, you should have just went out. Like,
but it's like at least it's only 12 seconds long. You know what I mean? It's like just when you're going like, oh, I'm not sure. Oh, it's over.
Yeah. No, I like to poop on good things. You know, I have to find the one little flaw just to harp on that.
So yeah, it was a combination of old stuff and you know, like things, whatever was still resonating with me. Like the song "I Won't Fight" was written around the beginning of the Gulf War, and it was George Bush standing in a sand trap, you know, hitting a golf shot and talking about the brave guys over in Iraq. And I just saw like there's something really, I don't even know what the word is. It's like cold to be living your normal life after sending guys off. So I started thinking, like, what if your dad had been killed in Vietnam? And suddenly there's just like national fervor again to go and fight somebody. And what kind of conflict would that create for you? Even if you were patriotic, even if you maybe want to serve, it would be really torn. And the second part of it was watching a press conference after the war had begun, and those first weird nights where the Iraqis are just throwing up every anti-aircraft thing they have. And meanwhile, we have stealth fighters like a mile high that they can't even see or sense on radar, dropping bombs with cameras on them. And I just remember watching a press conference, and they were watching the film of a bomb hitting its target and then kind of giggling. And I was like, hey, dude, war is ugly and stuff. And the fact that we're kind of like having a laugh about it, that, however many dozens of people just died, that's not a good thing. So instead of war not being a good thing, I just changed it to guns. And so guns are not a good thing for our world.
I mean, listening to it now during this Ukraine invasion, like it sucks that it's an idea that still resonates how many years later, right? Like it just, and it's such a beautiful, heavy song, and carries such incredible weight. Were you always a lyricist? During those times?
I was a poetry writer.
Yeah.
But poetry is like a weird thing. It never feels like a palpable, like actual way to do anything, like unless you're self-publishing, right? So it was more just, I don't know. I don't know if everybody goes through it, but just trying to materialize internal emotions, whether you do it through art or through sculpting or running. I mean, it doesn't have to be an art, but it has to be something that takes this and puts it out there, as opposed to it just recycling and sort of burning inside. So for me, poetry began that, and then to be able to tie the two together just felt good, and and I always had a little weird attitude about it. Like when I first went to college and would play, I couldn't play in front of people. It was like I don't know, but people would sit outside my dorm room. I'd like put my guitar down and step outside. There'd be like 3 people getting stoned in the hallway and checking it out. So then, I just got a little braver and got a couple gigs and opening up for people at the University of Delaware. I opened up for famous dudes' brothers, Livingston Taylor and Tom Chapin.
That's cool. What was so when that came out? Did you tour on that at all, or just play local?
I played out a bunch, but I don't know how to explain it. It was like to get a full functioning band again, which I did after leaving the Hooters. I kind of like got a full band, put everybody on paycheck, so that I had their full time, and it was the age of grunge. And, and that's what's the stuff that was really hitting. And I have always kind of been reaching to music to soothe as opposed to agitate. So it seemed like the opposite vibe. No, that's that feels like an excuse, because people still were making soft records and getting heard. And so I don't know. I just felt like a round peg in a square hole at that time. So the idea of starting up another band thing kind of didn't appeal to me, but the Rhythm Cats gave me a chance to play out and play my songs and do some solo acoustic things. I don't know, but it's weird. It's weird after kind of being there, whatever that means, like being in front of 18,000 people and stuff. So it felt kind of sort of falling off a cliff, in terms of playing to 40 people at a bar that really don't know you and have no interest in hearing your original music, but we all face that. It's like nobody guarantees you a quiet audience just sitting there, except at the living room, which is really nice. And why originally I wanted to play there, because it used to just be 40 seats in a really small place. It's like 10 rows of 40. It's like people were right there, and small little stage. So that's why I wanted to do it. But then pandemic came, and that room disappeared.
Yeah.
And Laura Mann decided to step it up, and she found this place where she could get it on weekends, and it's a much bigger space, but it's really cool. She's got couches and super comfortable, chairs, and so people just, it's like you're literally playing in somebody's living room. And I don't know if it's going to change now that, because there was a little bit COVID set up, there'd be like a couch here and a couch over here. They were trying to keep it so people weren't on top of each other. But yeah, so that's why I did the living room, and why I'm doing this one. It's just because it's nice to have people listen. There's something beautiful about the quiet.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about other artists. Somebody I listen to a lot now is Phoebe Bridgers, because she just embraces the silence so that whatever she does fill it with is just beautiful. I mean, I could listen to her sing the phone book. There's just her phrasing and her breathiness. And so, yeah. And a weird one, maybe the strangest thing of the pandemic, loving 2 Taylor Swift records.
Hey man, like you can't deny her songwriting ability. Like, especially those 2 lo-fi albums that she put out. Like they were just like, it really kind of stripped away all of the kind of bullshit around her and was just like, hey, I'm also really good,
Right. I'm an adult and I have something to say, and it doesn't have to be. I mean, I always looked at her almost as much as product as an artist, because but she was 17. And the fact that she can write, shake it up, these great pop songs that are going to make young girls go crazy. And there's no denying that she did it extremely, extremely well. But I just remember hearing A Cowboy Like Me for the first time. And I was like, who is this? This is a beautiful, well-written song, but I don't know who it is. And finding out it was her, and then, I bought the second one first.
Okay.
Evermore, I guess.
Yep.
And it was interesting going back and listening to Folklore afterward, and you realize that there's musical themes that run throughout the record. And I remember seeing an interview where she's like, we finished that one and it just didn't feel like it was done. I felt there was like more exploring within that framework. And so some of the songs are kind of almost semi-continuations of previous album. And so anyway, I love the quiet, and I'm doing a course right now on mindfulness and meditation on YouTube Masterclass. It's this guy, John Kabat-Zinn. And it's, I've always sort of known this, because like once I had ego satisfaction and like money satisfaction, like being where you think, okay, I'm going to be happy when I get there. And then you get there and it's just other things bubble up. And, and if you're not straight within yourself and within your own thing, no amount of smoke being blown up your ass is going to make you feel okay. And so I've always been kind of exploring, read this thing called A Course in Miracles, which is all about the present moment being the only thing that counts. Everything else is simply in our brains, either in a future fear or past regret. And all your brain that you're using on those 2 things is blocking it from truly functioning in the present moment. So that's what I love, like being in the here and now and letting that expanse, and and doing this course has been really good, because it just reminds you that you can make anything into a meditation. Like I'm just doing a labor job right now. I'm working at this place called Renew Decor building. We build these huge mirrors with big wood frames. And so I'm like working, but I just try to remind myself, breathe, no matter what you're doing. For me, like the signal, John Zinn calls it dropping in. At any moment, no matter what's going on around you, you can become a calm in the center of the storm. And so many situations now, and I feel myself getting like, I want to control it. It's just a better way to be, and it makes me more patient and understanding and empathetic. And, I guess that's kind of all we can do as humans, And the other thing John came up with that I just started writing a song about, he said, ask yourself this question: what is my way? Like, what is my way? How am I going to go through this life? How am I going to present myself? And if you find yourself feeling weird, just go, what is my way? And my way is to try to come out of this with a peaceful solution and go about it with as low anxiety and agitation as possible. That's my way. Because there's plenty, so many humans are still functioning on a need, a grabbing, and it's like a possessive, and maybe I'm lucky enough to have experienced a lot of that, so that I know that it's not about that, and know that it's not about the car you drive. I know it's not about the house you live in. It's you choosing what you have, and owning it and being grateful for it. And so that's my way. That's what I'm figuring out. It's like, I'm a fuck up. I'm lazy. I'm like not great about being in touch. That's just because I'm trying to be, I don't mean that as a cop out. It's just like kind of like sometimes I slide out, and that's what I need to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's, one of the things, not just as a kind of product of the pandemic, but just kind of where I've been in life has kind of been the same thing, which is trying to figure out what, like, kind of, what I, who I am, I guess, is really, like, who I am at my core.
Question.
Not even who I want to be, but just who in the center of my being I am, like, and not putting on airs, and not who I'm trying to be for someone else. And I can pretty much pinpoint every single struggle that I've ever gone through as being a time when I've strayed from that center.
Right.
And it's like right now where I'm at, it's like the problem of recognizing that, but also acting on it, because it's very easy to recognize, but it's so hard to kind of bring it back in.
The Course in Miracles says to know and not to do is not yet to know.
That's 100%. That's it. I mean, that's it. And that's where I'm at. It's like touching the ceiling of enlightenment, but not kind of, making it to the next floor. You know what I mean? Like,
but also trying to be okay with that, one of my favorite lyrics from my album is Ice is Water. It says, if sometimes you don't feel right, just know you're not alone. All your trials are simply your journey home. And the sooner you can just accept that, there's going to be trouble, and that trouble is here for a reason, and if I can look at it as a lesson instead of a roadblock, it makes it a lot more tolerable, and I am so much more forgiving and empathetic about other people than I am for myself. That's like the inner self-critic is still really strong. The inner anger can come up really quickly, but it's never about, I know that my life is nobody else's fault. Like nobody else has done anything or trapped me or made me do anything. It's all been up to me. And that's what I'm working on, is like, okay, be here. You don't have to be anything except being able to be present and to be, I really feel when you're talking to people, when you're having a conversation with somebody and they're there and they look you in the eye, you're making eye contact, like that's real. That's the shit, because now we're really together, and what I'm going to share with you is truth. And it'd be nice if you do the same, because that's all we can do. And, I met so many people, rich and famous people, that didn't have that. They're always like, looking for somebody bigger than them that they can latch onto, or I don't even know what. But for me, that's the thing. It's like, can you be present with me right now and share who you are? That's all we can, that's why I'm a hugger, Yeah. And one of the hardest things about the pandemic was like not being able to hug people, and I love big hugs and long. I will never be the first one to release,
Yeah. That's so cool. That's so cool. I do this little thing called the Jauntlet, where there's all these different questions. But before we get into that, we really have to connect on the other thing that we share besides music, which is a great love of disc golf. So I need to know, like, when did you start playing disc golf?
96.
Okay.
A friend of mine played at Jordan Creek up in Allentown and took me with him one day. I mean, I had played at Brandywine We used to go to Brandywine when we played with lids. You can imagine how many lid throws it takes to get around Brandywine.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. But we would do it and jog. We would just it would be kind of a workout. You throw it and run the 150 feet that you can throw a lid and just, play 9 and be exhausted. But the first time throwing a golf plastic was like, oh shit, the stability is like, it's just diving to the left. So yeah, that got me. And then I heard from a musician friend that there was a doubles event at Sedgley on Thursdays. That it was a good place to learn because you get paired with a good player. If you're a beginner, you get paired with somebody really good as a doubles partner. And so I went and did that. And that was the second year that tags were running, that the official tags league. And so that was the next thing I started doing. And, and pretty instant. I think I guess I'd played about 6 months, and my parents got together with my friend Andrew, who turned me onto it, and they bought me a basket for Christmas. And that's like, that period of time feels like Zen to me. Because I remember practicing putting and feeling, the smoothness and the breathing and the using your whole body. And I just remember loving that feeling, and would practice all the time. And got pretty good pretty fast, and it was 3 years later, won my first tag championship at Sedgley. And I wasn't a great golfer, in terms of like knowing what great golf looks like now, but I was solid and tough to beat at Sedgley. And if things weren't too long, I just wish I'd started before I was 37. It's a young man's sport. There's a young kid at Sedgley right now named Harry Chase, and he's 20. And you watch him throw and just like, I wish I'd been able to play at that age. It's just the physicality of it. But either way, the community, the Zen aspect of it's you and your discs against that. And nobody else can be blamed, and nobody else can take credit, and when you make a good throw, the hum, I mean, I don't even, it's like, you didn't feel anything. It's like just what's that book called? The Flow. it just feels like flow.
When you get that perfect release and before it even leaves your hand, you're just like, oh, that's it. That is it.
Did you see the Chris Dickerson video?
No.
He was playing a casual round with Zach. Who's a big bearded guy?
Zach Melton.
Yeah. So they're playing a casual round together and they're talking trash. Zach Melton steps up and throws it to about 5 feet of something after claiming he was going to ace it. Then Chris Dickerson steps up, throws it, and fairly early in the flight, it was starting to go toward, he turned around and just started thanking his sponsors, and I like it, and it goes in.
Oh, Zach no
Melton,
way.
Anyway.
Oh, that's great.
But one of the great loves of my life, and truly a passion. I worked at trying to become a good player because just for whatever reason, it just really resonated with me. I love being out in the woods. I loved having a reason to be outside during the winter. I'd sort of stopped skiing and didn't really have any interest in that. But, so a reason to be outside, a reason to have good gear, a reason to have good shoes, and playing year round was a blast. We played in Hurricane Floyd.
Wow.
Yeah. Me and 3 other guys had to go around roadblocks all over Fairmount Park to get to Sedgley, but we got there. And while it was probably the dumbest thing we've ever done, it was dangerous out there. I mean, there was, you'd come around the corner and there'd be a branch into the ground, that came down at about 300 miles an hour. But it was so amazing watching Sedgley deal with the water, like how much water is being created. And my favorite part, we were playing this guy, Professor Rick, and he started off in a poncho, a shirt underneath, and blue jeans. And you know how jeans, like even if you're covered, they'll get wet from the bottom up, and then the wetness will. So eventually,
take it over,
he took off his jeans and didn't have underwear on. So he's playing in a poncho, and he's kind of a little portly guy. And every time he would throw, the poncho would just go,
oh no, and fly
up. And eventually, he's like, "Well, fuck the poncho," and he just played naked. He played 4 naked holes at Sedgley.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
It's one of the greatest places on earth. Sedgley Woods is just, and the people, like you said, are just so amazing, and it's just such an like disc golf just gathers such an eclectic group of people.
Couldn't be anymore. We have literally rocket scientists down to homeless person.
Yeah,
Barry Noakes is a rocket scientist, and we're actually going through some sadness at Sedgley right now. We're losing a couple holes on the Outback, and
I can't believe that, like, historically there wasn't something to be able to protect those. Like, that's just
40 plus years of being good stewards of the area didn't really buy us much when the city decided to come down.
Such a bummer. That is such a bummer.
Well, we'll make do. We lived without all those Outback holes before, so we'll figure something out and make the best of it. And since it's all about community, my friend Eric Sestaro calls Sedgley a shitty little course, but because he's over at Stafford Woods,
right?
So it's like, the Mecca over there.
Yeah, living the dream over there.
Holes. Yeah. So New Year's Day is one of my favorite days of the year. And one of the 2 days of the year that I get drunk. I don't really drink, but I get lit up on New Year's Day and lit up on my birthday.
It's beautiful.
At Sedgley on Jägermeister.
Of course.
Right?
That's amazing. Did you did you play when you were living in LA, or did you take time off?
I got out to Oak Grove a few times.
Yeah.
And a couple went down to La Mirada and something else. And I had a friend in San Diego. But it was Oak Grove. I lived almost in Santa Monica. So Oak Grove was I tried not to be in my car either between 6 a.m. and 10 or 3 and 7. It's like those times the roads are just fucked. There's as wonderful as the highways are at 3 a.m. when you're trying to get someplace, you got 6 lanes to yourself. You feel like a slot car. You just go wherever you want and you get any place, in 30 minutes. So I didn't play a lot, but because I was working in TV, I would have gigs for a while and then I would come home and be able to go to Sedgley, and was able to kind of I think I came in top 20 in tags one of the years where I was living out there. Just I came home and got the 1 tag. So it just, I was really good then. I was consistent. And one of the proudest things when I got back from LA, my dad had a stroke, and I was like, I can't be in LA for this. I can't be that far away. So I came home and started taking care of him. And at first it wasn't like a full-time gig. Eventually I was his main caregiver and was really locked on the house and just kind of helping him shut it down. But in, 2009, I won tags again. I was 50 years old and took down tags and played a lot of really good golf. I played 89 rounds, got 88 gold tags. And at that point, gold tags were only 1 through 20. So you had to finish in the top 5 or 6, and I just felt, I don't know. Anyway, then I got Lyme disease. My right shoulder disappeared. So now I just sort of retrained myself just to literally enjoy being out there, and to enjoy a good shot, because I went through this period where it was like, turning into a little bit of the angry golfer, just because my arm could not respond to my brain. I still have a little bit of nerve damage and numbness up in here. So it just was like, but now sort of, trying to ease into the night, just like life, basically, all your shit stops working as well. And, and I'm 63 now, and, I'm not going to be able to throw as far as I ever could and never will again, but I can still enjoy it and still be a really good card mate and, and be supportive and energetic as you can be, and, and be a good ambassador, and not be angry. And that's, another good time to practice mindfulness. It's like, this is a game. I'm out here for the enjoyment. I'm out here for the sunshine and the camaraderie. And that's a win. I can get through a full round where I just had a really good time with people. And, I still allow myself a second to make a Miss Ann curse or something, something inappropriate. But, then you just let it go and move on to the next shot. So,
yeah. It's the Lyme disease in the arm. Does that affect playing at all?
It was weird. I lost complete use of my right arm for 8 months. I couldn't raise it over. I had 2 nerves died up in here, and the muscles then disappeared, which is really odd because the whole area got concave, like between my neck and where your scapula is, was just so it looked, like this part of me was gone pretty much. But luckily, the nerve grows back. I'm not sure how it happens, but but vocally it was a little weird too. It attacked a little bit in my throat and a little bit in my stomach. And really? I still have a lot of numbness across here. Like, that was the worst part about it. First of all, I didn't sleep for 30 days. Literally did not sleep. Did not have more than blink my eyes shut because just uncomfortable. And for whatever reason, just felt jacked, and also didn't go to the bathroom. I mean, I peed, but I didn't poop for like a month. And
wow.
Yeah, honestly, dude, it was the heaviest time of my life because I thought literally I was dying. They were talking to me. They didn't know right away. They were saying shit like MS, leukemia. They weren't really sure what was going on, like all the weird stuff that was happening. So anyway, my body was pretty fucked up. I remember trying to carry a tray of rolls to Thanksgiving dinner, and just from the car to the house. And when I opened the door to my parents' kitchen, I walked in, people looked at me like, they were seeing a ghost. So I was just exhausted. I couldn't even stand at the sink to do dishes. The act of leaning forward and, anyway, I feel super lucky to have come back as far as I did. But it was a little bit weird too. I a little bit had to relearn how to sing. And in some ways, I think I've discovered some things that are making me a better singer, that instead of just settling on screaming, like trying to fill it and backfill it and sing from the diaphragm. And so just doing the best you can for as long as I can.
That's incredible. Well, I'm definitely glad that there's a repair there. Like that's super scary.
Yeah. Because, somebody sent me a really nice email after the last show I did at the living room, and she was just really sort of comparing me to other artists that she liked and telling me that's why she liked me. And that was really satisfying, and that, it's not a gigantic number of people, but there's some people that have been really touched by the music. And, and I've gotten to hear Carry Me With You in a church at somebody's funeral. My girlfriend's mother, they played the song in the church, like as like the last thing. So that, and I figure I've written my own funeral music already. So I got that going for me, which is nice.
Oh, geez. Well, we won't have to play that for a very long time, hopefully. So
I hope so.
I hope so too. All right. At this time, I'm going to put you through the jauntlet. These are 2 batches of 10 questions. The first just kind of verses. It's called the One Hit Wonders. You just pick whoever your favorite is. Number 1, Billy Joel or Elton John? Who do you take?
Billy Joel.
Billy Joel.
Yeah. Do we want to back it up, or you just want the question?
No, go ahead. Yeah, you can absolutely back it up.
I like his songs better. He played with such incredible fire, and there was no bullshit. Not that Elton John was bullshit, but the duck outfits and it's that kind of stuff, and Crocodile Rock. It was a little more campy and showy, and I just liked that Billy Joel was smoking a cigarette and just beating the shit out of it and telling amazing stories. Just that part of it. Yeah.
Definitely. Number 2, Debbie Harry or Joan Jett?
Joan.
This is the
Can
hardest
I say Chrissy Hine? Chrissy Hine.
You can. I like that.
It's Chrissy Hine then. Because to me, she sort of encompasses both of them.
Yeah.
Joan Jett, a couple songs, but beyond that, I can't say I ever listened to a Black Hearts record or really checked her out a whole lot. And Deborah Harry, Blondie had some cool stuff, but Chrissy Hine was the real legit, and singing, unique singer, unique songwriter, kick-ass band, and so I was a Pretenders guy.
Definitely. I love it. Number 3, this one I'm probably going to end up changing at some point because these are all new ones that I took out. Like I used to have Eddie Van Halen or Sammy Hagar, and everybody said Eddie, or David Lee Roth, and nobody said Sammy Hagar. I think one person did. So I was like, I got to take that out. But this is one of those. Aretha Franklin or Tina Turner?
Tina, just because Aretha is like History Channel a little bit for me. Okay. Like not really having any experience of her as a young woman. But Tina Turner was still young enough in her sort of late 70s, early 80s revival, so I felt a little more personal connection to that. I mean, obviously Aretha, respect, no pun intended, right. But for me, it was always kind of like this thing that happened, but I never was part of it. At least with Tina, it was like I saw her do it, and I think speaking
literally
of
Live Aid, yeah.
Dude, sitting literally underneath the piano, like that was on stage for their rehearsal, and having them rehearse like 4 feet in front of me. And just remember looking around and looking out over the empty arena and my favorite part is that there might well have been 90,000 people there. Whatever's going on in those egos, they were trying to outcock each other right from the beginning, strutting around, doing the whole deal. But it was amazing. Yeah.
That's so cool. That is so cool. The next one, Nirvana or Pearl Jam?
Pearl Jam.
Yeah. I kind of guessed that.
Nirvana, again, a couple songs besides, Teen Spirit and a couple other ones, Heart-Shaped Box or whatever it is. But Pearl Jam's first record, I caught them in the Tower, and they were like,
really?
I only knew 2 songs from MTV, but the rest of it, and Eddie Vedder is just one of those cats. He was going to, climb up into the lights and do crazy shit and entertain you that way. But I also loved the bass player and the guitar players are both kick ass. I'm a Dave Grohl guy. I mean, the fact that he came out of Nirvana, like one of the most iconic bands of all time, and forged, for me, a better history for himself.
Definitely.
To me, the Foos are like one of the great bands. And you watch them play at Wembley Stadium and watch the intensity of the crowd reaction. You can't fake that shit, and it's because he gives it up.
100%. 100%. Yeah. The next one, Janis Joplin or Stevie Nicks?
I was 18 when Rumors came out, so I looked at Stevie Nicks' picture a lot. Oh, she was pretty cute.
I could dig it. Think I know the answer for this one. Beatles or the Stones?
Beatles.
Yeah, I thought
Stones. I listened to Sticky Fingers a lot. Midnight Rambler. Get Your Yayas Out. There were songs, and Ruby Tuesday. But for me, all you have to do is look. All I have to do is look at the songbook that the bands produce now in its entirety, and look back. It's like there's so many more Beatles songs that I really like. There's a lot of these songs that I couldn't even sing the melody in the Rolling Stones greatest hits. So
yeah,
Beatles.
Definitely. Last one of the one-hit wonders, Bohemian Rhapsody or Stairway to Heaven?
I'm going to say Bohemian just because it got pummeled to death with Stairway.
Yeah.
Like every kid playing the riff in guitar stores. It became elevator music way before it was considered for elevator music just because you got bombarded with it.
Yeah.
Bohemian's so weird. I mean, first of all, Stairway to Heaven's kind of a little bit of a ripoff. I can't remember the guy's name right now, but it's taken. Like that.
Yeah.
That descending note thing came from that other cat song. Anyway, Bohemian, just because obviously Freddie was having an artistic trip, just to imagine that stuff, to even think how this could happen, and here comes the operatic part, and
right.
They're pulling it off.
And then it shreds in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and for being as long, you can't have a hit that's 6 minutes or whatever,
right.
But, plus who hasn't sang that song at the top of their lungs, some portion of it at some point in their life?
Definitely.
Every person who likes music has said, Mamma Mia, Mamma Mia. So
I love it. The next section, the top 10 countdown. These are just favorites and stuff like that. The word Jawn in here can be music. It can be anything you want. It doesn't have to be specifically music. So don't feel beholden. Jawn. It can be anything. So
right.
Number one, what was your first Jawn? What was the first thing you were obsessed with as a kid?
This might be weird, but one of the first things was Elvis Presley in the Ghetto.
Really?
In the Ghetto. Yeah. I mean, that was the first 45 I ever bought. So there was something about and that for him, that like his singing was so big and round at that point, at least on that song. So I just remember frequency wise being like, that's really cool. Oh, you know what? I want to addendum slot cars.
Oh,
that's the first thing I was obsessed over. Yeah. Because I had like the briefcase with multiple cars, fresh brushes, fresh tires. And we had a place in Ambler. There was a slot car place right on Main Street in Ambler that was, a bike ride from our house. So spent a lot of time there, and just sort of loved the preparation, loved repainting the car. And, and they had the big track. They had like 14 lanes, color coded, and you'd have amazing races.
That's so cool. That is an awesome answer.
Slot car nerd.
I love it. Number 2, what's your current, Jawn? What are you into right now?
Mindfulness.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the things I think about the most during the day, because no matter what else is going on, you can always make it a little better by taking a breath and coming fully into the moment, dropping in, as he says.
I love it. Number 3, what was the first concert you went to?
Johnny Winter.
Really?
My first was an albino experience. Yeah, and I don't even remember why. It's I think just because I got invited. But I remember. But here's a weird thing. I remember having a really succinct daydream that I was going to be playing bass in the Spectrum at one point.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
It's an amazing if you will it. Like that is really
although
incredible.
Never really consciously. That's the funny part. It wasn't like I left that night and picked up a bass and started, still a jock and still, involved with that, all that. And so it wasn't until years later, like actually when we were playing the Spectrum, kind of remember like looking up to the third deck and remember where I sat for Johnny Winter, and like it all sort of came around.
Oh my God, that's so incredible.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Number 4, what was your last concert? What was the last live show you saw?
Wow, it's weird because of the pandemic. I guess In the Pocket. I mean, I was part of it, but I'm also watching.
Yeah, that counts. Oh, it totally counts.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I love watching Davey play, and there's a lot of good people in there, and I love watching Greg Davis play guitar. So I can fanboy out a little bit before I get up and play with him.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That is cool. Number 5, what was your favorite concert you've ever been to?
I'm going to say 2.
Okay.
I was a huge Kansas freak. Like when they first came out, their first record, the fact that they became famous for Wayward Son and Dust in the Wind, I'm happy for them because they made a shit ton of money finally. Because their third record called Mask is like one of my favorite records of all time. And to find out later that they were like super in debt up until that point, like the 3 albums that I loved made no money for them. But the first album was out and we heard they were going to be at Villanova. They played in the cafeteria over at Villanova. And I was about 15 feet away, and they did the opening song of their second record, having never played it. It wasn't out yet, but they're like, this is a new song that we're going to do. It's called Song for America. And I just remember being like, what the fuck was that? And just literally one of those blown away moments. So that, then fast forward to U2 at the Tower after,
oh my God.
Dude, we were standing not up in the chairs, we were standing on the arms of the chairs. And I will never forget them doing I Will Follow. And like I turned towards the audience, and literally every person was as tall as they could get, screaming I Will Follow with their fists in the air. And I just, their first 2 albums, I just really, really liked. And just last night, I got turned on to a band called Inhaler. It's Bono's son.
Oh, really?
Yeah, who looks a lot like him and sings a lot like him, and they sound like U2, like early U2. It's really actually cool because it's all boy energy, but it's back to the like ringing guitars and screamy vocals, and so
I gotta check that out. I'm gonna check that
Inhaler.
out. Okay, all right. Number 6, who have you never seen live who you wish you would have? They can be living or dead.
Hendrix.
Oh God, yeah.
The only reason I have a quick answer to that is that, you see that once in a while people will put up a meme like, who would you see? I wish that Hendrix had lived, because I would love to have seen him live through the pedal age the guitar technology, looping, all that stuff, whatever the creative thing was in his head, I think he would have taken it to an amazing level,
Oh, definitely.
Just maturity and, think about it. Like he was a kid, he's 27. I was thinking about it. That's so young,
Yeah, it's so
and
tragic.
to create the shit he did when he was 24, like the songs you got to know him for before he died. That's just young, man.
Yeah, and to just change that instrument in such a small period of time, just by expressing himself, like it's incredible.
Tone and that's one of the amazing things about guitar. That even after all this time, there's still people you can hear a few notes and you know who it is, like Eric Johnson, Mark Knopfler, Brian May. It's like it's tone and vibrato and playing with a coin or whatever you do, but it's amazing that you can still make that instrument so your own.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Number 7, name an unappreciated, Jawn. Name something you wish people paid more attention to.
Well, what used to say disc golf, but now I want to get out the Men in Black pen and erase it from a lot of people because you can't play it essentially on weekends anymore. But then you find a new place like for the Fort, and you find some place that's still in its fledgling stage and watch it. There's nothing I love more than watching a course grow and knowing how much love and sweat equity has gone into it from the people that love that place, and to see it blossom and yeah. But my current answer would be What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, it's incredible, isn't it? It's absolutely incredible.
It makes me belly laugh, and I know a lot of people won't get it, but I don't know. I love that.
It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Number 8, what's your favorite album?
Tegan and Sarah, So Jealous.
Oh my God. Did you just see they re-recorded it? They did.
But I always love their demo versions. They've always put out just like demo versions of all their records, and it's really cool to see what choices they made. I'm sorry I interrupted. What did you start to say?
Just that they re-recorded it and they sang each other's parts. Like
they did each other's songs. I remember reading that.
Yeah, it totally blows my mind. So, spoiler alert for anybody listening to this, I actually reached out to their publicist and I'm trying to get them on this show. So,
well, I would think they do it. They have a big presence. They used to do these things called the Forest phone, where they would just have this like prop phone next to them, and then they would do a speakerphone call with their mother or their friend. And it was just something for them to do in the studio while other stuff was going on. But they're hysterical.
They're the best.
They're really funny. And seeing them live and the banter and stuff was just always really funny. But anyway, So Jealous, a guy that used to deliver weed to me in LA used to give me a mix CD every time he would come over. And he put
awesome business model.
He put Walking with a Ghost on there. And I thought it was Cocteau Twins. Have you ever heard Cocteau Twins?
Yeah.
Like Leaving Las Vegas is like one of my favorite records. But I thought it was them. So I like checked and I was like, oh, Tegan and Sarah, what's that about? So I went and got So Jealous. And, so it also represents like my initial foray into LA, so I have it's one of those things, like you have emotional turmoil and stuff and you have a record that you attach to that.
Absolutely. It's like a time machine. Like a time machine.
Yeah. Like, and what's the song? How do you know when to let go? Where does the good go? That song live is some of the biggest chills I've ever gotten. So, yeah. So,
awesome answer. I love it. Number 9, name an artist whose output you'll consume anything they release, even if you're apologetic for it.
Crowded House.
Yeah.
Neil Finn. Yeah. I mean, there's a story. I'm not exactly sure it's true, but someone asked Paul McCartney, what's it like to be the world's greatest living songwriter? He's like, I don't know. You'd have to ask Neil Finn.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I think, he's another cat who somehow make the phone book interesting.
Yeah, totally.
His sense of melodies and I think Red Balloon is kind of my tribute to Crowded House.
I can definitely see that. Yeah. I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
Number 10, the 10th and final of the top 10 countdown. What is your favorite Jawn of all time? Again, doesn't have to be music, can be anything you want it to be.
Wow. It's, disc golf. I mean, to not say that what's something that occupies every weekend, playing a few times a week. Luckily, we have this new course up here, Fulmore. It's like a private course.
Oh, yeah.
To join. It winds kind of through a small home community. And so you just sort of wake you. And there's one field where they have baseball fields and stuff, but mostly it's just kind of short and it's really close. And it's just really nice to go over and throw, and we played last Saturday. I got a left-handed hole in one.
Oh my God. There you go.
That was my third, during when the right arm went, I started playing with my left, and now anything I need to go hard left to right, I'll throw it left-handed. And feel pretty good about it.
A switch hitter. I like it.
It was really, you just had to break it down to ergonomics when I first started doing it. It's like, okay, what's just the simplest, and don't try too hard. And eventually, I have actually, in a weird way, I have more faith in my left hand right now in terms of like hitting a line.
Yeah.
But I'm not trying to do too much with my right. I'm still like, I can make it further.
It's one of the things in the sport that I'm surprised you don't see more of, are people being able to use both hands.
Well, I guess a forehand kind of takes that left to right motion that you'd be looking for. But I don't have a really good forehand, so it's nice to have something I know is going to finish right and all the mistakes are going to go right. It's like that's where it's going to go.
All right, so this is going to air on Monday. So anybody listening to this will just pretend that it's Monday now. But so this Friday you're playing the Living Room.
It's next Saturday. 19th.
It's Saturday. Sorry, not Friday. Saturday. No, this Saturday because we're in the future now.
Oh,
this. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes. This Saturday, the 19th, I'll be at. You just reminded me that South Park did a special and it takes place in the future. Oh, and everybody keeps referring to the fact that they're in the future. Yeah, we figured out all that stuff, because we're in the future now.
We're in the future now.
There's no more hate. There's no more. We figured it all out. Anyway.
But that's solo acoustic, but you said Ed will be there with you, right?
Eddie and I have my friend Eric Sestaro is also going to play some whatever you call those things you sit on. And
the cajon. Yeah,
he's bringing his cajon and he's going to play a few songs with us when we're trying to rock it out a little bit at the end.
That's awesome. That's that's so exciting. I'm glad to see you out and playing and stuff like that, and still doing it.
And just, I want to mention this. I'm not taking any money for the gig. I am putting it all, giving it right back to Laura Mann, who's working super hard to make a place for local people to be able to play. And I'm lucky enough. Some people came out, will come out to see me, partially because of the Hooters thing, for whatever the reason. But if she can get people in there because I'm there, the money's going to her so that she can support some other artists who may, be on tour or maybe new, just starting up, so that she can support them by having a place for them to play, a nice place that people can sit and listen.
That's absolutely beautiful and incredible. That's absolutely incredible. Andy, thank you so much for not just doing this, but like I said, for inspiring the basis of this podcast. That makes me
really happy, Nat. I'm really happy that came to fruition for you. And I'm a big admirer of people that make it happen. It's one thing to have an idea. It's another to follow through and to make it real. That's the real stuff, man. So I'm proud of you in a weird way,
thank you, man.
To do it, it's not, because now you won't have any regrets. You'll never have to go, I wish I had tried that podcast. That might've been cool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely.
Now you have a history and you've left a trail.
I put my imprint.
Mark.
I put my imprint.
Yeah. That's cool.
I will, before we end this, leave you with one thing. You have to get the album up on some kind of Spotify or something. You got to get it out there because there are incredible songs on there that people should really hear, and I think people would really enjoy to hear. So that's my task to you. Make that happen.
Cool. All right. we'll try to take that to heart. Thank you very much for the kind words.
My thanks again to Andy for joining me on the show today. Andy will be performing this Saturday, March 19th at the Living Room at 35 East in Ardmore, PA. Tickets are still available at thelivingroom@35east.com. Doors are at 7 p.m. And my many thanks again to Dave Cox for use of the photo accompanying this episode. You can contact Dave and see more of his work at www.coxpics.com and on Instagram at DaveCoxPics. Please be sure to subscribe to the Yo That's My Jawn podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. And don't forget, you can earn yourself a super awesome Jawn Scout Merit Badge for Citizenship of the World just by rating and reviewing us. Don't forget to visit www.yothat'smyjawn.com for articles, merchandise, and links to all of the previous episodes of this podcast. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/yothat'smyjawn for updates and live streams. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at YoThat'sMyJawn and search Yo That's My Jawn on the YouTube to find the Yo That's My Jawn YouTube channel. Like and subscribe the heck out of that ish. We want to hear from you. Reach out, and touch some Jawn. And of course, as always, thank you guys for listening to this episode. Y'all come back now, you hear? Blue skies. Until next time, everybody.
Hey yo, displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure. Your taste in music doesn't have to be.
Yo That's My Jawn is a Lonely Monk production written and produced by yours truly, Nate Runkle. Theme song by Phil Tyler Music featuring Nate 3.0. Special thanks to Fox Run Brands, DX Ferris, Andrew Scott, Natalie Runkle, and the incredibly brilliant and wickedly stunning Katie Daubney. If you or anyone you know has any ideas they would like to share or any guests they would like to hear on the podcast, please feel free to reach out to us at yothat'smyjawn@gmail.com. Or you can leave an audio message for us and possibly hear yourself on a future episode by visiting anchor.fm/ytmj/message. Until next time, be sure to displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure and shout to the world, yo, that's my Jawn.